you find your own way. Showgirl, do the same. All you gotta do is just showgirl, do the same.
Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Everyone, I am here with Nicki Stanford. Welcome to the Showgirl Tip of the Day podcast, where we talk about, you're welcome, we're talking about vintage clothing today, and we're talking about Winthrop, Maine. And I met this woman partly because of her Instagram presence. You have a company called Freckle Salvage Company, right?
Correct.
How did you start that?
So I have about 25 years plus in retail management as my career. I worked in the Atlanta area for about 17 years. And I've always loved it. I'm one of those weird people. I really enjoy the hustle and the bustle of retail, even, during the holidays and things like that. So we ended up in Maine. My husband was in the Coast Guard. So we got stationed in Maine and we loved it here and decided to stay. So we bought a home and such. And I think I was about 40 years old. And I'd always loved vintage. Even as a kid, I worked at like auction houses and things like that. And we were walking around. We went down to Brimfield down in Massachusetts. It just kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. I was watching all these people and they were selling. And I was like, wait a minute, like they're gathering stuff, they're having a blast shopping, and then, and they're selling and they're making a living doing this. And I kind of decided right then and there. And we started out really small. I started, just with a Facebook page and grew to a booth in a local mall. And we started doing larger vintage shows. And my son was in school and very young and not doing well. I wasn't around. I was working, 70 hours a week at a retail career. And I told my husband, I said, by the time he starts first grade, like something's got to change. And we just went for it. And it's so silly because you think you can't do these things. And, you make a phone call and you ask to look at a property and people will actually let you. And you're like, wait, it blows you away that it's not that it's super difficult, but the discipline that it takes to work for yourself is hard. But we started and we opened our shop there on Main Street in Winthrop, August 2019.
Okay.
Yeah. 6 months later is when COVID hit and we were forced to shut down for 2 months.
Yep.
Yeah. You question all of your life choices and
oh yes,
cried so much, didn't know what to do, but we kept plugging. Like we were posting every day still. We were doing lives. The Winthrop community was incredible. They were doing sidewalk pickups. I was running things out to people's cars and I was shipping things, and friends from away were, buying stuff off of our eBay store, and we survived. Somehow we survived and we came out of it, and it's just been full tilt ever since.
Well, I have to say your Instagram presence, your online social media presence, because I work in Damariscotta and Boothbay Harbor. And from looking at your posts and Miss Marigold's Vintage also, I was like, what is this vault? I gotta check it out. And I went there in September and I walked into your shop by mistake instead of the vault. And you were so kind to me. And the whole vibe of it is fun, it's friendly, and the shopping is incredible. The way everybody sets up their booths and their areas, it's art. And it's so much fun to go. And so far I've been to 2. I was at the Halloween one, and on Saturday you'll see me at the December one, the Christmas
it's gonna
one.
It's gonna be so good. So the vault is separate from our shop. So our shop is open 7 days a week. And it's actually a really funny story how this happened, because like I said, we had done shows and we had our takeaways from that. We had things that we loved about doing shows, but it's hard. If you've ever been to one, done one, you're, setting up one day, you're selling for 2 or 3, and then you're breaking down, and it's hard on you. And there's wind and rain and weather and, cancellations. And so we had been renting the shop for about a year. And we had only signed a year lease because I didn't have the confidence that I should have had in myself. So I went to re-sign my lease with my landlord, and we were talking about the square footage of the store. And he was like, well, you don't do anything with the garage underneath the shop. And I was like, no, it's just a little garage. And he goes, well, okay, if you've never used it, we went back and forth. So I said, well, let me have the key. So we we opened it up and my husband rolls up the door and there is a 3,000 square foot garage, which is the same footprint as my store underneath the shop. It used to be the old post office in town. And so it was an actual working garage with a, a postal office and things like that. And we'd been sitting on this 3,000 square feet for a year and I had never been in it. And it just we looked at each other and we were like, what can we do with this space? So it was October. It was about August when we discovered it. And at that point, flea markets were still not really happening. And we knew so many vintage dealers that had lost out on shows. They were still being canceled. And, you have several antique dealers that don't do social media. Like these guys, some people still have flip phones and,
Yeah.
And so we were like, what can we do to make our store better? But we also wanted to help, as many people who were like us as possible, these vintage sellers that had such a hard year. So we just just brainstormed and we're like, well, we're going to start a monthly flea market. And we operated it and began. So we started in the garage underneath the shop with 12 dealers who most of them are still with me today. They took a chance. I was making phone calls and I'm like, I've got a dirty old basement and we're going to make it awesome. And would you like to try? And people did. And we ran it like a shop. So the vendors themselves weren't present. We kept the COVID restrictions in place. We had vendors that helped me. And even one of my vendors' husbands worked the door and we kept a head count. And we had an app just like a restaurant. And so if you came to the door and we were at capacity, we would take your name and number and you could go shop the other businesses in town, or you could go stay warm in your car. And then we were texting people when it was their turn to come back and shop. And we came up with the name The Vault because we were like, well, it's going to open for 2 days and then it's going to lock down again. And 30 days from now, it'll open and you can come back, And so we created, without even intending to, just a fervor around it because it's like, well, you can only get in there 2 days a month. And we were keeping it safe and people felt comfortable coming because of what we had in place. And I miss the basement sometimes. It was cozy and it was quaint and it was 12 of us and it just kept exploding and kept growing and growing. So back in April, we moved into the space that you've now seen, which is in the old textile mill next door. And that's a 6,000 square foot space. And I have 24 vintage dealers in that space now. And that's the space that you've seen. But we started in the basement underneath the shop.
So what do you do with the basement now? Do you have anything going on in there or do you just use it for your storage?
Right now it's storage. And it's my husband's domain. He's got his, table saws and things like that down there, but it's there if something should happen. I mean, we've always got it in the back of our mind, but the space we're in now, you've seen, it's just incredible. It's an old textile mill. It's the hardwood floors and the busted up windows in the back. And it's just an ideal place for a vintage market. We continue to, the vendors themselves don't have to be present. It isn't a requirement, but a lot of them come and you've seen a lot of them come and they volunteer. And so it's just this fun environment and the displays are very inspiring and we have a different theme every month. So, you're always going to find furniture and art and books and accessories and clothing. We have one room that's pretty much dedicated to vintage clothing vendors in the vault. But every month we just do a twist on a theme. So you came last month, that was the haunted vintage market, which was a blast. We had a lot of fun.
It was so fun.
Yeah. So we've done all kinds of things. We've had Up to Camp, which is a very Maine theme. We've done All American. We've done Winter Wonderland. I mean, we just do different. I have themes planned out usually a few months in advance so the vendors know how to purchase and they can plan. So this month is My Kind of Christmas. It's the first of 2 Christmas markets that we're going to do there. And the vendors get to kind of do their take on their favorite type of Christmas and whether it's vintage or Victorian or, or mid-century or whatever. And they all just kind of go with it. And I think it's fun for them. I think vintage dealers, it's an extra challenge to have that theme to kind of work with. I think it makes it a little more fun. You're not just picking whatever, you're like very selective and about what you do. So it's cool.
And then it creates this whole vibe of the event. It's very cohesive. It looks beautiful. I just have to say, I'm amazed at what you've done, and you're bringing so much traffic to the town of Winthrop.
Yep.
I didn't even know Winthrop existed because I just go to my jobs, and I started in Booth Bay Harbor 30 years ago, and
so
that's where Booth Bay Harbor is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
But I do have to say, I've been looking for a place up there, and I can't afford it. So coming to these different towns, Winthrop is a place that now I'm intrigued. I'm like, I wonder if Winthrop could handle a little dancing school or a little performing arts center. I'm getting, but that's because of you. That's because you started this thing.
Yeah.
And I drove up, and so other people are coming too. It's really cool. The
There's
energy
lots of
that
space
you're
in that
bringing.
mill. There's more space in that mill for a studio.
I know. And I love Pickles and Potions across the street. That skincare.
She's amazing.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Winthrop is one of these towns that we came out of the pandemic with more businesses than we started the pandemic with. And I've tried, like, I'm kind of shameless sometimes when I message magazines and newspapers and radio stations, but it's like, it's a really big deal. We opened a little over 2 years ago. And since we've opened, I think it's probably 6 or 7 at least new businesses, including Pickles Potions and the Art Walk, which is another great artisan place down the street. There's a couple new restaurants. It's pretty incredible. It used to be a hop in town because of the textile mill. Like it used to really back in the day. There was, huge vacation population, which there still is. The population of the town doubles in the summer. I think when a lot of people think about Maine, they do think about the coast and they think lobsters and lighthouses, and there is that, and it's beautiful. But the lakes region, which is where we're located, and going into the mountains and the foothills, which is where I actually live, there's a lot more to Maine than the coast. And the lakes region is amazing. And there's lots of great property for sale there. So
it's good to know. And we all get into our little routines, and just taking a few steps off your beaten path will open up a whole new world.
That's cool.
And also, I just think that Winthrop is something that people should come visit and explore. And I just love how you have created this business just from your heart and your ideas. That is so inspiring to me.
Thank you. I get pretty emotional because it really is my dream come true, because it's like, and it's better than I could have imagined. My husband was able to quit his job in May, and we now run the store together full time. So, and we have our son who's now 9. And so it really is our family business, but it's not just us, like our vendors. We have I'm thinking we have over 50 vendors now for the holidays between the shop itself and the vault. And it's all a family. And I really want them all to succeed, whatever vision they have for their businesses. We have this great vehicle to help them. And then at the same time, it makes my shop that much cooler because they're in it. So it's pretty awesome. We have all kinds of makers, and all of them are small businesses. Almost all the vendors are local. I think I have one vendor from Massachusetts that actually makes the drive to set up in the vault. She's incredible. And I've got a vendor from New Hampshire that actually makes the drive. But I rent the space for the entire month, so they can come and go and work their space throughout the month in between. So it's so good for them, especially like moms and people with other jobs and lives. They have access to the building as long as the store is open, which is 7 days a week. So they can come and go and get their space set up at their own pace. So there's not that hustle and bustle of throwing everything up on a Friday. And that's how the spaces are able to be a little more elaborate and a little more inspiring, because they have that time to really flesh them out, which is really cool.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So how do people find you on social media?
It's so much word of mouth, and I could probably give you 5 people specifically that have just been my cheerleaders. It's word of mouth. Every time a new vendor like Miss Marigold, you were just talking about, joins us, then I reach that many more people because now she's sharing and you saw it. Mm-hmm. So every new vendor that comes on board, I've got a whole nother, group of people, and it blows me away every month, whether it's the shop or the vault, that it's every day people walk in and it's their first time. And that just makes me so optimistic, because it's like, if once I get you in there, I've got you, you're going to come back. So our growth is just unlimited potential, but it's the word of mouth. It's the Facebook vendors. All of my vendors are required to post on social media once a week. It's in the contract that they sign.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I take that pretty seriously, because I really believe it's like, how is anyone supposed to be excited about what you're doing if you're not excited about what you're doing? And so when you see my posts, that's real. Like, I am always excited when people bring new things in. I'm excited when I bring something new in, and then I pass that on to them. And I'm like, look, it's like, what you're doing is cool. Like, be proud of it, be excited about it, and post about it. Every post doesn't have to be about selling things to people. It can show them the process of of what we do and how we do what we do. But yeah, they have to post once a week. It's a requirement, and many of them post more than that. But they blow me away with their posts. I got, vendors now like me that are in their 40s and 50s, and we're learning how to do things on TikTok, and it just keeps going. It's really cool. I'm very proud.
I love it.
Yeah.
And you should be, but it's not just the marketing, it's the way you treat people. I felt immediately warm and accepted, and you were so friendly. It's a whole warm vibe. It's so fun. It's like it's having a little event for yourself when you go there. I didn't go with any friends. I went by myself. And all of a sudden, this group of girlfriends was talking to me, and everyone was just so lovely. Everyone was so cool and fun.
It's exciting. It's exciting to be there on the weekends of the vault. It's just, and this one especially, the responses, because I do put the event on our Facebook page. I don't have a separate social media for the vault. That's just a little too much for me right now. So it's all through the Freckle Salvage Company Facebook page. But the responses to this are about twice as much as last month, because everybody's really excited for Christmas. I think we definitely need Christmas again this year really badly. So I'm excited and nervous for the weekend, because I think it's going to be nuts. But I've got so many. I basically offered to trade my second born child, which I only have one, but to get help in this weekend. And most all of the volunteers came through. The vendors are going to be there, and then I have the people that come in and that work with me. So it's going to be insane. So
I can't wait. When this episode will probably air at the beginning of December. So is there a second event that you're having?
We continue.
Okay.
We do it every single month, even through the winter. I think that's one of the biggest questions that we get asked, is if we keep doing the vault in the winter. And honestly, those tend to be busier because there's not a lot going on in the winter, and we continue to do it. So the December vault is the 11th and the 12th.
Fabulous.
And the theme for that one is Under the Tree. And we'll be focusing more. The vendors, I've asked them to, because all of us have maker friends, right? And artisan friends.
Yeah.
And they are open to partner with any maker or artisan friend that they have to bring their work into their space, so that we can provide more gift ideas. Because people this month are going to be all about the vintage decor and, and getting their houses decorated and trees up and things like that. But in December, we tend to shift more into a gift buying, finishing up our Christmas list mode. So we want to use that to help more vendors and more artisans if possible. So there'll be other things in the space that'll be great for gift ideas and whatnot. So
much fun.
We're having a blast. I'm so glad you came. I'm so glad to have met you. Like, that's really cool.
I love doing this podcast because I love sharing what I love with other people. And I started out as a dancer. I have become a director and a choreographer and a teacher. And I love doing the podcast so much because I get to meet all these wonderful people. I'm just so proud that you are doing this amazing thing for your town, for your community, and for your family.
Yeah.
You have created this world that you take care of your family by doing this. And that is pretty awesome.
Thank you. That's kind of part of where the salvage comes from. Is like, yes, we are vintage dealers, and I get emotional, but it's like, it also saved my family.
Yeah. No, it's beautiful.
Yeah. I get to see my kid every day after school. I can pick him up now, and I missed a lot. There was a couple of years I really missed a lot, but I had to do, I had to work that hard. That's where we were as a family, and just to have, we're home together every night as a family now, and we're still working. I'm still usually posting and working on things, but it's like we're together. And so that salvage part isn't just about what we sell. It's really about, the way that it saved my family.
Fantastic. Yeah. I love that so much. Well, thank you, Nicki. I'm so happy to know you. I'll see you on Saturday. I'm going to get there early. There's
some good clothes. The girls went all out in the clothing room. So there's some great vintage clothing and stuff. Yeah.
And you know what? The prices they're fair and they're reasonable, because I go to the Manhattan Vintage Show and I know how much it costs to rent a booth there, because I have a few friends who rent the booths. But the prices at the Manhattan Vintage Show, they tack on like $100 to everything. Yeah. It's so crazy. And this isn't my quote. I read it somewhere and I can't remember where I read it from, but it said, nothing in your space needs a birthday, so. Yeah.
we talk about these things, and it's like, if you've had something and you're just either moving it or dusting it or, whatever, either people don't want it or you have it priced too high. And the beauty of selling stuff is that now I have money to go buy more cool stuff. So
yeah,
we really try to keep our prices, because we want vintage accessible. We have teenagers that come in and love it. I have, high school kids that drop by after school and they love the shop. And that makes me happier than if I was making, these high-end antique store prices. I'm like, no, I'd rather have a teenager flip out because she got a cool sweater. That makes me way happier than charging more. So, and then we make our money. We know what we pay for stuff, and we're happy with it. But yeah, we're pretty proud of the fact that, yeah, people seem to think that it is so reasonable. And a lot goes out. It
really
the door,
is.
So.
Yeah. And that makes, it just circulates in the world, and it keeps all the stuff out of landfills. The reason I buy vintage clothing is because the fast fashion market, they don't pay the workers. The conditions for the environment are terrible. But then you find something from the 50s that has a lining, the stitches, even if you tried to rip out the seam, you can't do it because it's so well put together. It's art, it's artistry, and just going through time and having a piece that will last you the next 100 years is pretty amazing.
It is. I agree.
Well, you're busy. I don't want to keep you. And
thank you so much. I'm so honored that you asked me, and so happy to have met you.
The Showgirl Tip of the Day podcast has original music composed by Joshua Holloway. Find him on YouTube, Joshua Holloway Music. This podcast is written by Michelle Bruckner and edited by Michelle Bruckner and Joshua Holloway. Find me on Instagram, Showgirl Tip of Day. Thanks for listening. We'll see you again next week with a new episode.